I had just finished signing the final papers for the emergency loan. A loan I knew I could never repay, when my lawyer gave me a look I'll never forget. It was a look of pity mixed with utter bewilderment. He leaned across the polished mahogany desk, lowered his voice, and asked me, "Did you know your wife, Eleanor, received $2 million inheritance just 3 months ago, a fact she actively hid during this entire medical crisis?" My son, my sweet 7-year-old Leo, was lying in a hospital bed with a rare, aggressive form of leukemia, and the only thing standing between him and a life-saving clinical trial was money. Money I was sacrificing my future for. Money she secretly possessed. Was I wrong for what I did next? Was I wrong for seeing her not as my wife, but as a callous stranger who prioritized hidden wealth over our dying child? Tell me honestly if you would have waited even one more minute to demand the truth. It all began with Leo. He was the light of my life, a curious, imaginative boy whose laughter could genuinely brighten the darkest day. When he was diagnosed 2 years ago, our world fractured. Everything became about him: hospital visits, chemotherapy schedules, endless consultations. My wife, Eleanor, and I had always had a good, stable marriage. We were high school sweethearts, built a life, and worked hard. I ran a small construction firm, and she managed a boutique graphic design company. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Then, the medical bills started piling up, quickly moving from manageable to mountains of paper that threatened to crush us. We burned through savings, liquidated investments, and maxed out every credit card. The doctors had been upfront with us. The standard treatments were failing. Leo's only chance, his only real hope, was a highly specialized, cutting-edge clinical trial available only in Boston, and it wasn't covered by our insurance. The estimated cost for the first 6 months of treatment, medication, travel, and accommodation was nearly $750,000. It felt like an impossible number, a cruel joke played by fate. Eleanor and I had spent weeks having heartbreaking discussions, scouring every financial avenue, selling everything non-essential, even discussing selling the house we'd raised Leo in. We were a team, united by the singular, desperate goal of saving our son, or so I thought. During this period, Eleanor seemed more distant than stressed. She was quieter, often excused herself to take phone calls in the garage, and was oddly preoccupied with managing her business's finances, which seemed strange given her company was also struggling due to our shared crisis. I attributed it to stress. Who wouldn't be completely overwhelmed? She'd sit by Leo's bedside, holding his hand, looking devastated, and I constantly reassured her, telling her we'd get through it together, no matter the cost. I remember one tearful night when I told her I was going to take out a massive, terrifying loan, securing it against my firm's assets, essentially risking everything I had built. She just squeezed my hand and whispered, "I know, honey, thank you. You're doing everything you can." The cold, hard lie in that moment is what haunts me most. I was at the bank finalizing the paperwork for the $600,000 loan, an amount that would destroy me financially, but, critically, give Leo the start he needed. That's when my corporate lawyer, Mr. Hayes, pulled me aside. He had been looking over our family's public financial disclosures for the loan application. He explained that a routine search had flagged a significant, unreported inflow of funds into an account solely held by Eleanor, an account that had been dormant for years. He confirmed it was an inheritance from her great-aunt Clara, who had passed away earlier in the year. The total amount, deposited 3 months prior, was $2 million, more than enough to cover Leo's entire treatment, the Boston stay, and even the follow-up care. I felt a dizzying combination of relief and pure, blinding rage. Relief that the money existed, rage that she had let me beg, borrow, and risk bankruptcy while sitting on a pile of cash, twice the size of what we needed. I didn't know what to feel: betrayal, shock, fear. I thanked Mr. Hayes, my voice sounding hollow and detached even to my own ears, and walked out of that bank, the loan papers crumpled in my pocket, ready for a confrontation that would either save my son or destroy my life. I drove straight to the hospital, the engine noise a dull roar compared to the pounding in my skull. I found Eleanor in the private waiting room, reading a magazine, looking relaxed, too relaxed. I walked in, shut the door with deliberate force, and dropped the crumpled loan agreement and a printed bank statement from Mr. Hayes onto the table in front of her. The statement highlighted the $1.2 million transfer with a bright yellow marker. Her face, usually so composed, went instantly white. The magazine slipped from her fingers. She stammered, Where did you get that?" The lack of denial was all the confirmation I needed. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw a stranger. I didn't yell. My voice was a low, dangerous whisper. I asked her why she had let her son suffer while I mortgaged our future to scratch together enough money for a procedure she could cover with a single transfer. Why she had sat there, day after day, and watched me cry, knowing she had the solution locked away. She began to cry, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of fear. She launched into a frantic explanation. Great Aunt Clara had stipulated in the will that the money was for her financial security only, to be used only for Eleanor's eventual retirement, and that I was not to know about it, as Clara had always disliked me. She claimed she was protecting her future, that Leo's treatment was a financial black hole that would swallow the money without a guarantee. Selfishness, child die to you can no longer jump into their the way you once did Payanol retirement fund, was physically nauseating. I realized then that her love for Leo was conditional, and her love for me was non-existent. The money had exposed the real Eleanor. So that's the situation I was in. I was standing across from the woman I married, the woman who shared a child with me, realizing she was willing to sacrifice that child's life for $1 million. I had to make a choice. Do I let this go for Leo's sake, take the money and live with this monstrous secret, or do I expose her true nature, demand justice, and risk a brutal, ugly fallout right when my son needed peace? Before I tell you what happened next, the final, devastating conversation and my decision, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept pouring money into a failing venture? Would you have confronted her more aggressively? Or would you have washed your hands of it entirely? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts, because at that moment, I felt completely lost. I took a deep breath, the hospital air thick with disinfectants and dread. I told her I didn't care about Great Aunt Clara's dead wishes. I didn't care about her future security. I cared only about Leo. I demanded she transfer the $750,000 immediately to the hospital's account for the Boston trial, or I would call the hospital administration, the police, and a divorce attorney right then and there. I told her I would expose her to every person we knew as the woman who hid the cure from her dying son. She finally broke. She didn't break out of contrition, but out of fear of public humiliation and legal repercussions. Sobbing, she agreed to the transfer. I forced her to call her banker immediately and authorize the funds. I watched her every move, making sure the transfer was initiated. It was the most satisfying and devastating phone call I'd ever witnessed. Once confirmation came through that the money was earmarked for Leo's treatment, a burden lifted, but another, heavier one settled in its place. I walked back into Leo's room. He was sleeping, small and frail beneath the white hospital sheet. I sat next to him, and in that moment, I made the second, irreversible decision. I knew I couldn't save Leo while staying married to Elinor. The betrayal was too profound, the moral injury was too severe. The climax wasn't a shouting match, it was a cold, calculated divorce. Once the funds were secured, I served her with papers the very next morning. She fought dirty, naturally, trying to claim emotional distress and attempting to discredit me. But the paper trail of the inheritance and the simultaneous desperate medical loan applications I had initiated told the true, damning story. My lawyers were brutal but efficient. The court saw the blatant attempt to conceal essential funds necessary for a child's life, saving treatment. The judge was not sympathetic to Elinor's retirement security argument. The remaining $450,000 of the inheritance was put into a trust fund strictly for Leo's future medical needs. She lost almost everything: the house, the business, and almost all of the remaining inheritance. The aftermath is ongoing, but infinitely better. Leo is in Boston. The trial is incredibly tough, but he's responding well. He's fighting. He has a chance now, and that's all that matters. As for Elinor, she's completely out of our lives. She was granted supervised visitation, which she rarely exercises, preferring to maintain her narrative of being an innocent victim of a ruthless, greedy ex-husband. She alienated most of our mutual friends and family who, after hearing the truth supported by the bank statements, turned their backs on her. I lost my marriage, my comfortable life, and some of my sanity, but I gained the only thing that truly mattered: a fighting chance for my son. I saved Leo, but in doing so, I exposed the shocking truth that sometimes the person you vowed forever to is capable of the most monstrous act of selfishness imaginable. I walk away from this whole ordeal with a deep understanding of human priorities. The man I was, who believed in blind loyalty, is gone. The man who remains is hardened, exhausted, but victorious. I lost a wife, but I didn't lose my son. That's the only win I needed. If you've ever faced a betrayal that redefined your entire life, you know this pain. Please like this video if you were on my side and believe I did the right thing for Leo. Subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes just sharing these experiences can be a form of healing. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. What should a parent truly prioritize? I'll be reading them. I'll see you all in the next story.